Hi, this is David Boje, and I want to talk to you about TogetherStorying.com, where we accumulate pragmatist videos. I'm going to show you this one about Charles Sanders Peirce in a minute, but at first I want to make a few points. Charles Sanders Peirce is attacking the idea of opinions and beliefs that become scientific principles or principles of organization, whatever they are, or political policies. And here's some things I've learned from Charles Sanders Peirce's work back in 1877, 78, and what he did in a decade after that. Well, for millennia, people have been certain about their beliefs, and then they look for facts to reinforce their beliefs. And then those beliefs turn into principles and theories, and even science tries to prove them right instead of having doubt. What Charles Sanders Peirce is all about is doubt and fallibility. And here are some examples of the 10 greatest certainties of all times that collapsed. 1, the Earth is at the center of the cosmos. You all know that. For centuries, this Ptolemaic geocentric model treated Earth as the unmoving center of the universe. Total bullshit. 2nd, and I still hear this today, flat Earth is a physical fact. In some cultures, people took it as a fact that the Earth was a flat disk. If you stepped to the edge, you fell off. And people are still trying to push that today. Luminous ether, number 3. Physicists once believed that light had to be waves in a universal medium called the ether, which supposedly filled all space. And they had the Michelson-Morley experiments, and the development of special relativity showed no such medium exists. Spontaneous generation of life is number 4. Long-held belief claimed life, like maggots or microbes, simply arose from non-living matter, such as rotting meat or blood. Careful experiments, Ready Pasteur, showed organisms come from other organisms, leading to germ theory and modern microbiology. Number 5, humoral theory of health. Classical medicine treated health as a balance of our 4 bodily humors: blood, phlegm, black bile, and yellow bile. This framework justified bloodletting and other practices. Number 6, phlogiston theory of combustion. Chemists once thought that combustible materials contained phlogiston, phlogiston, a substance released during burning, explaining flames and residues. Lavoisier's work on oxygen and conservation of mass showed that combustion is a combination with oxygen and not release of that other thing. Number 7, the blank state of mind. How often have I heard this in psychology? Total bullshit. The tabula rasa view held that humans are born with no innate tendencies at all. This behavioral genetics, developmental psychology, and neuroscience showed this to be big error. Then there was phrenology, skull reading. And it claimed that the shape of the skull reflects specific mental faculties and character traits, treating bumps, oh, I got a bump here, and contours as physiological maps. Neuroscience demonstrates that brain function is not mapped in this way. Number 9, fixed, unchanging continents. Before plate tectonics, many experts believed, had the opinion, developed the theory, and had the principles that everything was static, and land bridges were explained in fossil distributions and matching coastlines. Evidence from seafloor spreading, paleomagnetism, and global seismicity established moving plates and continental drift as the correct answer. Number 10, this is my last one, a single ice age and a young Earth. Geologists once posited only one global ice age, and often vastly underestimated Earth's age. Biblical contributes to this. And there's still big arguments about it. Every one of these is a false theory, of an opinion that became a belief that became a principle that was supported by science. Until what? Charles Sanders Peirce gives the answer, right? Until people in science started to question and doubt these theories is true, and they had to go against the grain, right? They had to have a lot of courage to do their commitment to fallibilism, that we mainly get things wrong. We are incorrect many, many times about our opinions, our beliefs, our principles, our theories, etc., etc. And people say, well, the logic of the time was this. Well, the logic of the time changes. A priori logic that we look at. So what I got is a website called TogetherStorying.com. I call it storying with an ing because it's a verb. Why am I interested in fixed theories and stuff? I'm interested in together storying. Get out of this flat earth notion, tabula rasa, and the rest of it. All right. So I am asking you to go to that website, and I created some software where it's based on pragmatist theory, Richard Rorty, William James, not the idealism part, but the idea of many, many views, polyphony, as Bakhtin calls it. So you go to the website, and you get a welcome, and you learn some basic Charles Sanders Peirce, induction, deduction, and abduction. And that's the kind of thing that creates a self-correcting science and self-correcting principles and self-correcting theories. And this is a book that my wife wrote, and I wrote, Grace-Ann Roselle and I wrote about on doing conversational storytelling interviews for your dissertation. And what is it about? Charles Sanders Peirce's theory of self-correcting, our beliefs, opinions, our theories, our principles, so we don't linger into these awful bullshit beliefs. And it's simple to use. You state your story. We challenge your beliefs, your theories, your principles. You come up with a better story. You get a printout. It's free. Hey, go to the website and check it out. Hey, that's about all I have time to talk to you about right now. I created a movie about Charles Sanders Peirce who could explain what I just explained a little more concisely. Thank you.
Today, we're going to dive into the work of philosopher Charles Sanders Peirce to unpack the 4 fundamental ways our minds decide what's real. Let's get into it.
So, at its core, our mind is kind of running on 2 different filters. On one side, you got the doubt filter. Peirce described it as this uneasy and dissatisfied state, right? It's that mental itch that pushes us to ask questions and start digging for answers. And then on the other side, you've got the belief filter. Now, this is a calm and satisfactory state. It's that feeling of relief that lets us make decisions and gives us a sense of stability. We're pretty much always bouncing between these 2. And here's where it gets really interesting. This quote from Peirce reveals a pretty surprising motivation. He argues that when we're stuck in that itchy state of doubt, our main goal isn't really to find the absolute, capital T, truth. Nope. The goal is just to stop doubting. Our brain just wants to land on a firm opinion, pretty much any firm opinion, to get back to that calm, comfortable state of belief. As he says, we're content whether the belief be true or false. Okay, so if the goal is simply to stop doubting, what are the fastest ways to get there? Well, Peirce pointed out 3 really common, but as we'll see, ultimately flawed shortcuts that people take to escape that discomfort and just lock in their beliefs. The first and, most basic method is what he called tenacity. This is the brute force approach. It's super simple. You just decide what you're going to believe, you repeat it to yourself constantly, you focus on anything and everything that supports it, and you actively, aggressively ignore anything that might challenge it. It's basically belief by sheer force of will. And this quote just perfectly captures the mindset, doesn't it? This isn't a passive thing. The method of tenacity demands you actively defend your belief. I mean, think of an ostrich burying its head in the sand, but an angry ostrich. It's a conscious choice to shut out any conflicting ideas just to keep that peace of mind. The strength is its simplicity, for sure, but the cost is you have to treat every new idea like an enemy. But, tenacity is hard to maintain, especially across a whole community. And that's where the next method comes in, the method of authority. With this one, belief isn't fixed by just one person, but by a powerful institution for an entire society. Think of a state, a church, maybe even a massive corporation. They lay down the official story, and they work really hard to suppress any other viewpoints to make sure everyone stays on the same page.
And look, this method can be incredibly powerful. It can create stable societies and lead to some pretty majestic results, like building pyramids or cathedrals based on a shared belief system. But it has a fatal flaw. Sooner or later, people start to notice that other cultures in different times and places had totally different beliefs that were also backed by powerful institutions. And that plants a tiny seed of doubt. Wait a minute, what if our beliefs are just an accident of where and when we were born? That little seed of doubt often leads people to what feels like a much more sophisticated method, the a priori method. So, instead of an institution telling you what to think, you adopt beliefs because they just seem, agreeable to reason. They feel elegant, they feel logical, intellectually comfortable. But here's the catch. What feels reasonable is often just a matter of intellectual fashion. It can change from one generation to the next, just like hemlines or hairstyles. So let's do a quick recap of these 3 shortcuts. As you can see right here, each method has its own basis, its main strength, and, critically, a fatal flaw. Tenacity is simple, but it can't handle social pressure. Authority gives you stability, but it shatters when it bumps up against other cultures. And the a priori method, it feels really respectable, but at the end of the day, it's unstable, like fashion. You see the pattern here? Every single one of these shortcuts has a built-in flaw that eventually leads you right back to the very doubt you were trying to escape.
So this all leads us to a really important question. If all of these shortcuts are doomed to fail, is there a better way? Is there a more durable method for settling our beliefs, one that doesn't just fall apart under a little pressure?
And the answer, according to Peirce, is a resounding yes. But it is not another shortcut. He called it the method of science, but I think it's helpful to think of it more as a path of intellectual integrity, and it is fundamentally different from all the others.
This path is built on 4 really powerful ideas. First, it starts with a simple, humble assumption that there's a real world out there that exists whether we like it or not, independent of our opinions. Second, it's the only method that has a built-in feature of admitting it could be wrong. Third, and this is its superpower, that admission of being fallible is what allows it to be self-correcting and actually get stronger over time. And finally, it requires a kind of courage. You have to value the integrity of the process more than the comfort of a convenient belief. You have to follow the evidence, wherever it leads. Looking at this side by side really makes the difference pop. The other methods are all about us, our willpower, our rules, our intellectual tastes. They're all subjective. The scientific method completely flips the script. It tries to take the human ego out of the equation and anchor belief in something external. It embraces the idea that it might be wrong, which, paradoxically, is the only thing that gives it a real shot at eventually being right. Peirce used this incredible analogy to explain the kind of commitment this path requires. Choosing one of those first 3 shortcuts, that's like a relationship of convenience. But choosing the path of integrity, that's like a marriage. It's a demanding standard that you commit to. It's a partner in the search for truth that, as he says, you have to be willing to work and fight for. So, we've walked through these 4 very different ways our minds work. But this isn't just some abstract philosophical game. Understanding these mental habits has some really profound implications for how we live our lives every single day. So why should you actually care about these 4 methods? Because we are swimming in them all the time. And more importantly, we use them ourselves, often without even realizing it. This whole framework is an incredibly powerful lens for understanding where so much of the friction and conflict in our world actually comes from. And these clashes are happening everywhere all the time. The method of tenacity is basically the engine of our modern social media echo chambers, right? Where algorithms just feed us what we already believe and teach us to have contempt for other views. The method of authority drives so many corporate and political narratives. These clashes are happening at the family dinner table, in our offices, and they're fueling polarization on a global scale. When someone who's operating from tenacity argues with someone who's trying to follow the evidence, they're not just disagreeing on facts. They are playing completely different games with completely different sets of rules. And this is the real takeaway. The whole point of understanding these methods isn't to get a new weapon for winning arguments or proving other people wrong. It's about achieving a greater sense of well-being through self-awareness. It's about spotting the pull of those easy shortcuts in our own thinking, and understanding that when others disagree with us, maybe it's because their entire method for arriving at a belief is different than ours. That understanding can lower our frustration, open the door to better conversations, and honestly, give us a little more inner peace. And that brings us to the final thought I want to leave you with. The next time you feel that itchy discomfort of doubt or that calm comfort of a settled belief, just take a second. Ask yourself, which of these 4 habits am I using to get here? Is this a shortcut I'm taking for comfort? Or am I on a path that values integrity? Because the method you choose doesn't just decide what you believe, it shapes the kind of thinker you become. So which filter are you looking through?
Go to TogetherStorying.com and you can find more films about pragmatists, and try our new software where you can change your story in more of a pragmatist view. Rewrite it and rewrite it. It's free. Thank you very much.